Right, we should now have all the ingredients we need to be able to find out the equations of lines, okay? All we've got to do is spot the patterns and put things together, okay? So what I want you to do is stop the video, and what I want you to do is find out, for each of these lines, find out what the gradient is and what the y-intercept is, okay? So stop your video and have a go. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and organise this. So I'm going to put my colours in. So I'm going to put blue, green, purple, red, and orange. And then I'm going to do I'm going to do gradient, and I'm going to do y-intercept. So I'm going to organise my work as a table. Okay, so that's good organisation if you're doing something like this, okay? So we're going to find the gradient and the y-intercept of each one. Now the y-intercepts are easy, so I'm going to start with that. I can just see the y-intercept because I just have to look at the graph, okay? So the blue one has a y-intercept of 1. The green one has a y-intercept of -1. The purple one has a y-intercept of 3. The red one has a y-intercept of -2, and the orange one has a y-intercept of 2. Now, the gradients are a little bit more tricky. Okay, hopefully you've managed to do them. You could either pick 2 points and use the formula, or use your right-angled triangles. Now, what you should have found out is that the gradient of the blue line is 2. The gradient of the green line is also 2, it's the same. The gradient of the purple line is 1/2. The gradient of the red line is also 1/2. And the gradient of the orange line is -1. Okay? If you're not sure how I got them, please ask. I'll do one example for you now. So if I look at the blue one, remember all I do is I pick 2 points, 2 sensible points, make my right angle triangle, and do rise divided by run. Oops. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 for my rise, 2 for my run. 4 divided by 2 is where I got that 2 from. Now, can you spot a pattern? Can you spot something that links this table to these equations? And it should be pretty obvious to spot. Do you notice that this value is always the gradient? This would be -1. 2, 2, half, half, -1. 2, 2, half, half, -1. And do you notice that these values is always the y-intercept? Okay? That is the y-intercept. So a straight line always has this equation. Y equals some amount of x plus something. Y equals mx plus c. This is always a straight line. This is always a straight line, okay? And this value is always the gradient. And this value is always the y-intercept. So if you want to know the equation of a line, all you have to do is find out what the gradient is and find out what the y-intercept is, and then it's y equals mx plus c. Okay? So you might want to make a note of that. That's really, really important, and you have to remember. Okay? Remembering, so important. So what we can do is we can sort of work forwards and backwards. For example, if I'm given an equation y equals 2x plus 3, then I know for sure that the gradient is equal to 2 and the y-intercept has 0.03. Remember, on the y-intercept, the x value is always 0. Okay? If I have an equation that looks like this, y equals minus 2x minus 4, then the gradient is negative 2 and the y-intercept is 0, negative 4. The x value is always 0 at the y-intercept, okay? So we can, in fact, let me just give you another example, because you might get confused. Sometimes you might have a line that looks like this. Y equals 7 minus 2x. Well, what is the gradient and the y-intercept here? It's very easy to think that the gradient is 7, but it's not. The gradient is always the number in front of the x. So the gradient is minus 2, and the y-intercept is 0, positive 7. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. The gradient is always the number in front of x, what we call the coefficient of x. Okay, so here we've got some examples. Write down the gradient and intercept of each of these lines. Well, here we've got a gradient of 1, y-intercept of 0, 7. Okay, here we've got a gradient of 2 and a y-intercept of 0, 0, because it's plus 0 effectively. Okay. What about this one here, 7 minus x? We've got a gradient of minus 1 and a y-intercept of 0, 7. Okay. What about this one here? The gradient is 3, the y-intercept is 0, 2. Okay. Now, what we can do is, if we're shown a graph, we can work out what its equation is by first of all finding the gradient. So let's pick two sensible points and let's work out what the gradient is. Rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Run is 1, 2, 3. So the gradient is equal to 2. The y-intercept is here, the point at which it cuts the y-line. That's 1. So the y-intercept is 0, 1. So now I know the equation of this line. The equation of this line is y is equal to 2x plus 1. Okay? There is the equation of my line. One common mistake that drives me crazy when I see students do this is they write their answer. So I say, what's the equation of this line? They say 2x plus 1. No, that's not an equation. Equation has an equals sign. It's y equals 2x plus 1. The equation is mapping x against y. If I know x, what is y? So there's no good doing it without having a y in it. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. If you know the gradient and you know the y-intercept, we can write down the equation of the line. Okay? So have a little look at this one. What is the gradient of the line y equals 4x? Okay, it's 4. What is the intercept of the y? I think it means the y-intercept of the line y equals 4x. It's 0. Okay, there's no plus c there, so it's just 0. So we know this line will look like this. Okay, it's steep and it cuts through the point 0, 0. Okay, what's the gradient of this line? Okay, that's 3. What's the gradient of this line? No, it's not 7. Certainly not minus x. It's not 0. It's minus 1. Okay, the gradient is minus 1. The number in front of x is negative 1. Okay, what's the y? I thought we already did this one, didn't we? Let's skip that. What is the gradient of this line? That's easy. The gradient is 2. What is the y-intercept of this line? Technically, it should be 0, negative 7. Okay, but that's what they mean. Okay, right, stop your video and have a go at these. Work out the gradient and intercept of these lines. And then for this one here, can you tell me the equation of the line? Okay, here are the answers. Okay, gradient equals 1, y-intercept equals 5. C represents the y-intercept, okay? So you can check those. And this one has a gradient of 1 and a y-intercept of 3, so the equation of the line is y, don't forget the y equals x plus 3. Y equals x plus 3 because the gradient is 1 and the y-intercept is 3. Okay, same for this one. Find out the gradient and intercept of each line. And then for number 7, tell me what the equation of the line is. Stop your video and have a go. Okay, here are the answers. Oops. Okay, and number 7, the gradient is -2. The y-intercept is 6, so this has equation y equals -2x plus 6. Okay, if you know the gradient, you know the y-intercept, you can find the equation of the line. Okay, another one for you to do. Write down the gradient and y-intercept of each of these lines. And for number 7, I want the equation of the line. Okay, here we go. Here's the solutions. Okay, and number 7, the gradient is -1/5. You just leave it as a fraction. And the y-intercept is 5, so it has equation y equals -1/5 x plus 5. Okay? Right, have a look at this. Amelia writes, the line y equals 7 minus 3x has a gradient of 7 and an intercept of 3 because the gradient number always comes first in the equation. Amelia is wrong. Why is she wrong? And write down the correct gradient and intercept. So she's wrong because the gradient is not the number that comes first. The gradient is the number in front of the x, which is -3. And the y-intercept is the other number. So that has a gradient of 3, y-intercept of 7, or the point is 0, 7. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Right, so now a tricky question. You're given 2 points. Can you find the equation of this line? Okay? Well, remember, a line always has equation y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. So we can find the gradient. Remember, we learned a formula for gradient. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which you remember because you write it down so many times that it's blasted into your memory. So y2, we're going to make that one y2 and that one y1, so it's going to be 10 minus 6 over x2 and x1, 4 minus 2, so that's 4 over 2, the gradient is equal to 2. So now I know that my equation is y equals 2x plus something. I don't know what the something is yet. The something is the y-intercept, but I don't know what it is, okay? So here's where you have to be clever, and again, students forget this, and it drives me mad. It's not difficult, okay? All you need to do is pick a point, and it could be any point you like. So it could be 2, 6, or it could be 4, 10. But basically, that's 2, 6, and that's x and y. So what that is telling me is if x is equal to 2, y is equal to 6. So I'm going to substitute those two values into the equation. So I'm saying if y is equal to 6, x is equal to 2. So now I'm just going to solve the equation to find out what c is. 6 equals 4 plus c. So c must be equal to 2. Now I can write my final answer. Y is equal to 2x plus 2 is the equation of a line that joins these 2 points together. Okay? I didn't even need to draw a picture or have a look at it because I could just know that it's y equals mx plus c. I found out the gradient, and from finding the gradient I can then substitute a point into the equation to find out what the y-intercept is as well. Okay, don't forget that. Use a point. If x is equal to 2, y is equal to 6. By the way, I could have used this point, 4, 10. Let's just check that. Let's say I use the other point. We'll probably get the same, or we will get the same answer. Okay, So we know the equation is y equals 2x plus something. Let's put the other point in. If y is 10, x is 4. 10 equals 8 plus c, and it didn't matter, we still got the same answer. C is equal to 2. Okay? Right, here is an exam style question, so stop your video and have a go. Okay, should be easy. Gradient is 4. This one has a y-intercept of 9, or really it's a point, it should be 0, 9. Okay? Write down the equation of this line. So remember, find the gradient, find the y-intercept. Okay, gradient is 2, y-intercept is 1, so the equation is y equals 2x plus 1. Write down the equation of this line, and you've got a massive clue there, it's helping you find the gradient. Stop your video. Okay, so the gradient is 1 over 3. The y-intercept is 3, so the equation is y equals the third x plus 3. Okay, last one. Stop your video and have a go. Okay, what is the gradient of the line with equation y equals 2x plus 3? Well, that's going to be 2. What is the intercept of the line with equation y equals 6 minus x? Well, that's going to be 0, 6. Now, on the same grid, we need to draw both of these, okay? Now, remember, if you don't know how to draw them, then you can use a table of values. But hopefully you realise that this one has a y-intercept at 3. And then it has a gradient of 2. So if I'm going to have a gradient of 2, it's going to have to look like this. This is how I make a gradient of 2. Rise of 2 compared to a run of 1. Y equals 6 minus x has a intercept there, and then a gradient of minus 1. Well, this is a gradient of minus 1. So I know it's going to look like that. Okay? Using your answer to C, write down the coordinates of the point where the two lines cross. Well, there it is. That's the point 1, 5. Okay? Job done. Okay, if there's anything about this